Welcome! Welcome back, everyone, to Stories to D4. This is Footnotes, and we finally have our dear friend Jake back with us once more. If you don't remember, this is Victoria, and my name is Matthew, and I'm done talking. You guys can handle the rest of this, honestly.
All right, let's go.
How you doing? You having a good week so far?
Technically, Sunday is the beginning of the week, so...
Wow, you're off to a low start today, Jake.
Yeah, just these hot takes.
Hot takes with Jake.
Just today.
You know what? You're right. You know, it's the start of the week. It can only get worse from here.
That's true.
It's been kind of like that since birth. I think I got hit, I started crying, and it's been...
All the way down.
Ooh, we're going to have to have a very serious conversation with your mother about that perspective.
Connie's doing great, by the way. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad to have you back. Jake, it's been a little while. I think we had a little bit of a delay since the last time you were here with us.
Yeah, the last time I was supposed to be here, I was out of town. There was that session I got kidnapped.
You did?
That.
Wow. Okay, I forget what I had planned. Let's talk about the kidnapping. I guess I didn't realize you hadn't been here since then.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I actually haven't really gotten the time to talk to y'all about as much as I want to because I got kidnapped.
You did. Well, it's the
kidnapping.
fun kind of kidnapping where people actually are happy to see you and just wanted to shower you with gifts.
Christmas.
This is fun. We haven't had...
Yeah, that's entirely
This is
Christmas.
the first time, not counting things that happened before the campaign, where we kind of had secret off-screen role play that happened.
Yeah, that's kind of fair. We did talk about it a little.
If you haven't caught up, and if you're not caught up, this is pretty mild. I wouldn't consider this to be any sort of important spoiler. But a few sessions ago, when you arrived in the city of Galavon, Silas, our Lockstone hero, was misidentified as a famous general.
So, I've got a question for you then regarding this.
Uh-huh.
Don't want to get off track too fast, but
Sure.
that general, how long have you had that planned? Because I haven't had Silas planned for super long, but I know
The general was the fourth. So when I design a campaign, oh gosh, we're going deep behind the screen.
Yeah, I'm excited about this.
We're in my chair at this point.
Yeah.
Behind the screen. We're all the way over there. No,
Yeah.
So when I designed a campaign, because I think it's important to design. You should design most of your campaign for the players, but you should have some sort of vision. And I originally came to the party with several pitches for actual games. And the one that you all liked the most was the city campaign that we talked about. The city campaign that truly is just getting started. We only have had about a half a session in the city, and I'm really excited to talk about the city itself. But when I initially thought of this, there were 4 NPCs that I created. I think I've told you actually a little bit about some of the ones that were early. The first 2 were Sophia Rolemnon and Adon Castillo, a dear, close group of friends who were supposed to be these sort of good, kind, ally sort of characters. You don't have to work with them at all, but I had a very clear vision of like this flying Valkyrie woman who was kind of a badass and a sort of dumb mercenary who was really kind-hearted and sort of really wanted to just be buddy-buddy. I'm not saying I had inspiration from someone who would at all.
Yeah, there was no drawing from real life.
Look, it's fine. I'm just here to be arm candy, but not one arm candy.
But the third of those, I don't know if I've told you the fourth, so I'm not sure if I'm allowed to confirm that quite yet. But the third of those characters was actually General Bailey Seleucid. Now, they didn't have names at that point. We didn't have names. They didn't have all their specifics. But a Loxodon general in Elts was something that actually came up really early. So early, in fact, oh gosh, that General Bailey was referenced in the last campaign and none of my players caught it. One of my players briefly visited Elts and I mentioned them eating a Loxodon during their time there.
There's so many, there's 10 Loxodon across all of
They're
the continent. That could have been another one of the 10.
Yeah.
Who was the player?
It was me.
It was you.
It was me.
And no, it's minor. I'm actually just, I want to say, pretty much in general, my whole teasing or acting like a violent DM, I'm really not. I'm a big softie. I love when you succeed. You're the evil DM.
I will never
That's
sit
good.
at your table. You terrify me. You're so smart.
No, wait, no, we'd love to have you there.
Please come to my
Suffering
table.
is good.
Please play with me. Please. Please. I promise I won't give you nightmares.
Victoria, I don't have chat here. Is it this? It is!
Nice.
Hey, we got it. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. We really appreciate you for joining us. We got a little off track for a moment there, but so General Bailey was a long time before Silas was pitched. There was already General Bailey. Now, I didn't have that name, and Are we allowed to talk about the name Snafu?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
I really want to talk about that.
So, when I make my names, I have naming conventions. And Victoria, we've talked about this a little bit, I think, with Clella when they were talking with us about DMing styles.
Yeah.
But with naming, I have certain conventions. Loxodons are rare, and so I was like, what is the convention going to be here for Loxodons? And I took a little bit of inspiration from some other stuff I had going on in the background, where they're kind of a little bit referential. What I intended for General Bailey Seleucid was two things. It's Barnum and Bailey Circus. They have a big elephant. That was the whole...
Okay.
Barnum and Bailey, and the Seleucid Empire, maybe ahistorically, but at least mythologically, had war elephants. Actually, I'm pretty confident we're certain they existed, but war elephants are never really practical.
They're just scary. Because if you've never seen an elephant before...
Scary and expensive.
Yeah. If you've never seen an elephant before, that's a really good way to scare somebody, is just show them an elephant in person.
Why isn't that working in campaign, then? My intimidation checks are not working.
Well, your charisma is kind of low, but we
is.
could work on ways to improve your intimidation in the future.
Scary.
But do you want to mention anything about why Bailey is an interesting name for you?
So I get back from the session, you're like, oh yeah, you were kidnapped by Bailey. And I was like, oh.
We were kidnapped by the general. People thought you were the
I was
general.
Well, real life, Bailey over here. So that was the confusing part. I was mistaken for myself?
Well, so I didn't really think about anything to do with people's actual real life last names or the last names of their significant others or any of those sort of things. And so we had a happy coincidence.
Yeah, you sent me the message just like, hey, I know you're not here for this session. Long story short, you were mistaken for this. You've been kidnapped by these people. If anyone asks General Bailey, and I was like, General who? I thought it was a direct reference to me, and I felt so special for a second there.
No, I don't think of my players at all.
Never. He doesn't know our names.
What is my name?
Silas.
See,
Kinda
there you
fair.
go. That's right. That's
Dungeons and
good.
Dragons.
Wait, what's my last name with Silas?
That is a very good question. One that... Jake, do you know the answer?
No.
No, you don't.
I don't take notes.
It's actually interesting. Silas the Loxodon is his name. He does not have a given family. He has a given name, but not a family name at this point. Now, if we actually talked beforehand, you actually kind of decided to be a little bit divorced from Loxodon culture.
Yeah.
Because you were like, I want to be adopted into a family that doesn't really know what to do with me.
Oh yeah, I think like we joked about putting me in a stable, and I think it actually like that's how that character started getting developed because me and Amanda, IRL friends, love each other to death.
We should get the two of you on
do a
Footnotes
lot of-
together someday.
I want that.
Wish. I
want
so
that.
want to because I want to talk about like Gwenny and Silas's dynamic as they're growing as adventurers too. Because like, we don't always agree, and y'all have seen that on camera. But yeah, so part of Silas's background was early on he had an accident, or not had an accident.
There was an incident.
Story. Yeah, and we were kind of like, what do you want Silas to be from there? And it was like adopted by a dwarven family. Like
Yep.
that's kind of where we brought those.
And it was like,
characters
Amanda's going to be a dwarf.
Exactly. And it was kind of seeing like, okay, well, you're now adopted by a dwarven family. What now? And we're like, you put him in the stable. It was a fun little joke for a second there, but it
He
did
built
kind
you
of...
your own little house.
Right? Because I wasn't little, because I wasn't little.
No.
It really did grow into like this really solid, really fun character, and like it helped Silas become this very nurturing, lawful good, happy person.
We had a feedback loop of creativity. Amanda had some suggestions about her family, which then Jake talked about how the dynamic of that family could affect him growing up, which then came to me, and I was like, well, how is the world going to adapt this?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I need to make the village, and that's where Anton's Rest kind of got fleshed out. Before, the place you grew up, Anton's Rest, it was on our map, fully unexplored.
Yep.
It didn't matter. The only narrative significance it was that every continent in our setting, the world we know, has at least one city with the name Anton in it. Supposedly as places relating to some ancient hero named Anton. But, yeah, you got kidnapped. That's where we started with this.
Yeah, this was a long, like, Silas Rocks kind of a conversation.
Hey, I'm all for long segues. That's absolutely fine. This whole campaign might be a segue and a footnote in a story by some crazy bard and her crazy wife. But
I said nothing.
you did
Don't
get
look at me.
kidnapped. Now, it was happy. People wanted your autograph. You had flower crowns and wreaths were put around your neck. Now, you don't really know anything about General Bailey yet. You've never met him. He'd be the first Loxodon you've seen since your parents in Anton's Rest.
Exactly.
Or, excuse me, in Kaldheim.
Sad day.
Sad day.
Yeah, that's fair. Personally, General Bailey, who wants to meet a military type? He can't be that important.
Just gonna move you a little bit closer.
Am I not loud?
No, you're doing fine. I just want to make sure I can see the monitors over there.
Oh, that's kind of fair.
But eventually you did escape, had some good times, and a few sessions later, you all wound up in the big city. For those of you who've been following along, or those of you who are new, we've everything so far has been sort of an intro prologue, and now we're just starting. It's a little bit different, both for me as a DM and for you guys as players. Welcome to the big sandbox. How's it feeling?
I am so excited to be in Eltz finally. I've wanted to land here. I have no idea what I'm doing because, again, in the past we've been like, okay, we go to a place, we stay there for a couple days, maybe a couple sessions, maybe in-game time, months, but like downtime kind of things. And this is the first time we've really just gone somewhere big and said, we're gonna hang out here now for a long time.
Some of the players have goals here that may take years of their in-game life to accomplish. And we talked before the campaign started, and this is kind of where we can go into some DM advice, and you certainly have things to add to this. And even as a player, I really want to hear your feedback, where we talked about some player expectations. They're going to this city. One of the only character creation things we did was everyone, tell me a couple of reasons why your character is interested in going to the capital. And because of that, we're planning this campaign. It might end up being, you have this adventure you're doing right now. If you succeed, it might be the case where you have several months of downtime before another large inciting incident spurs you into action. You could be doing quests along the way during that time to gain money or practicing skills. There's all sorts of stuff you'll be able to do. But it's a lot different. Like Victoria said, we often would talk about the players' plans. We're planning on going to the Wandering Turtle of Mun to travel along its back and go shopping in its markets. And so I'd prepare that, and we'd go there for 3 to 5 sessions, have an adventure, kind of self-contained, and the party would move on.
Yeah, and now we're going to be in a place where, this for me kind of ties back into the scaling level of hero you are as you go through D&D campaigns. So this could be a long tangent from me.
You're allowed to. I'm
Great.
happy to relax. I got so much water hydrating for the day. If you got it back home, please join me. Yeah!
Got a quarter of a gallon left, so let's see how we do.
Before we start, I'm so sorry. Can I interrupt by saying, Jake, do you want to explain to the truly millions of folks watching at home who we all love each and individually the same?
Exactly.
What you were
100 million.
drinking? Tell me about this affront to God. Or gods.
Is it an affront? Because I'm kind of digging it.
I don't know if the cameras will be able to see this. So...
I didn't buy it, is the thing. I want to blame that on someone else.
It's not me. It's definitely not me. This is a Bud Light seltzer. And Jake, can you read me what flavored of seltzer this is?
It's toasted marshmallow.
It is toasted marshmallow.
Mine's pumpkin spice.
Seriously, absolutely do not trust your players with any major decisions or they will drink marshmallows.
Okay, but once again, it's shockingly good.
Yeah.
It's cream soda, but
It is
boozy.
absolutely just marshmallow. It's wild.
It is
Some
very
Willy Wonka nonsense.
You get a little bit of Bud Light, which is kind of interesting as a descriptive flavor. But
Yeah, this is just cinnamon rolls, like pumpkin spiced cinnamon rolls.
But that sounds good.
It's good. It
I
just is
don't
a
like
little weird, which is why I also have this. But okay, so whenever you go into a D&D campaign as a player, you go in as a DM, you kind of think about what happens as people level up. And we think a lot mechanically. Okay, so you level up, maybe you get more spell slots, extra attacks, more features from your class. Maybe you start to multi-class and get things from other classes, and you generally get stronger, more health, more gear. But
I agree with all this.
But what happens in the world as you're leveling up? Because you can't go from being a level 1 farm boy to a level 20 farm boy. That doesn't really end
I
up
just saw a
working.
mob boss meme for a moment.
Right. So you're a level 1 farm boy, and then at level 5, to get to the point where you've done enough to, get the experience to get stronger, you've done things that are impacting the world around you. So you're getting stronger. People are getting to know who you are.
The scaling idea.
Scaling. So like 1 to 5, maybe you're a local hero. 5 to 10, maybe you're like a regional hero, and then 10 to 15, you're getting to be like more of like a broader area.
A lot of times people even say kingdom wide.
Yeah. By the end
continental.
of it, you are, if you get to level 20, you're shaping the fate of the entire plane, really. In a lot of instances.
I know we referenced our previous campaign, but it's actually a useful tool to talk about a full 20th level campaign. What ended up being, by the end of the final session, I think the most powerful character was Ibra Kairin. We had a 20th level wizard who had ascended to the point of forming a new form of ascended to a higher plane of existence for the elven kind.
Yep.
Was able to, at will, teleport between different dimensions, commune with deities, was essentially, not in D&D terms, but was a god among her peers.
Did, in fact, achieve an amount of divinity.
Killed a minor god.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
That was a big session.
That was a lot of fun, actually. Yeah.
And
Do the JRPG thing where you start out and you're like, I don't
Rescue
know.
a cat, kill a god.
Right, love it.
There was a point when Ibra first joined us, Ibra was working with a local small village on repairing the damage to a mud road that happened during a recent mudslide. That's the small scale from that to God Killer.
And so my point about saying this is that in an early level in a campaign, maybe you make a bad decision, and we've made some bad decisions previously in campaigns. And so what do? We try to leave before the guards can find us. That is what we do. We don't fix our problems, we run away.
Fair.
And so now we're in a situation where we're not achieving what I would call that same progression of going from that level 1 to 20 and gaining all this notoriety that's like, you're now heroes, but people will know who we are if we keep meddling in a good or a bad way. If we're continuously boisterous and loud and out there in the public eye.
I have a reputation score in my background.
Yes, that's what I was asking for.
That's
I'm
so happy. Like, I'm not gonna try and steal this for a second, but social, aspects of games, like friendship meters, if you want to, some things, or, enmity. Not enmity, but I can't remember the word.
That's correct.
Infamy
Yes!
too. Yeah.
That's so cool, and I think that brings a lot of realistic flavor to D&D. Yes, we are saving people. Sophia, for example, that guard, that important person in the city, knows our name, kind of owes us a favor, let's be honest. Hey,
You'll have
that
to talk to
changed
her.
the city in a little bit.
And so instead of it being a situation where, you get stronger, people get to know who you are, we're going to be lower level with less tools in our kit to really help ourselves in a way. And when you play Dungeons and Dragons in a group of people and you've all agreed to kind of play a certain kind of campaign, there's an amount of the social contract outside of the game that exists where you say, okay, we're going to play an Elves for a little while because we all want to go do it. This is what's been planned. This is what we're interested in doing. You don't go play Curse of Strahd and then, I don't know,
we don't go to muffin shop.
Yeah, not solve the problems of Curse of Strahd. There's that amount of player to DM social contract that you have when a campaign is pitched. And so now we're like, okay, we're in Elves, but if we really screw this up, are we just going to get arrested and just be stuck here?
It is. So I guess are we leading into railroading? We're going to go down the dark tracks to railroading?
I don't know if we want to go down the dark tracks today, but I'm always willing to.
Railroading?
Railroading is the idea that a DM can write a story, essentially a DM forces a situation. There are minor versions of it that aren't necessarily problematic. So I don't want to say it like it's only a bad thing. Now, often it is used as a negative term.
Right.
So generally, broadly speaking, railroading is the idea that regardless of the decision, the story is on rails. So regardless of the decisions and actions taken by the party, the end will get to where the DM expects. And so I'll admit, let's talk about what railroading has happened. The quests you've encountered have given you incentives to head towards Elts.
Right.
But that was on the front cover of the module we're playing the big city. If you look at Curse of Strahd, it's the guy in the chair sipping his wine and saying, all right, come murder me or get married to me.
What's
That's
that
Curse
wine?
of Strahd. What was that?
No, nothing.
Oh, was it
Not
wine
purple
or...
grape mash. That's all I'll tell you. It's not purple grape
It
mash.
might just be blood. You're right.
Yeah.
I was just.
But I think the problem with the concept of railroading is that we could take it too far. Because I don't think, for example, that's why I say social contract, basically, is because us all coming together and saying, we want to play a campaign that's generally set in a large city where we're doing all these fun adventures, and you pitch an idea to us, we've agreed to go into this, and so your labor has been devoted to...
You can leave the city. Let me
Well,
clarify.
obviously, you
I
can leave the
have
city.
backup plans. They're less fleshed out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you piss off everyone in the city, you piss off the criminal underlords, overlords, excuse me, and you piss off the king and everyone in between
Right.
and leave, we'll adapt. The campaign will go on.
But my point would be more of if we all say, you know, we're gonna come, or oh, you want to make a pizza with your friends, and so one person's gonna bring the ingredients for the crust, one person's gonna bring pepperoni.
What did Jake bring to the pizza party?
Jake brought like sprinkles. I don't know.
Garlic.
No, garlic's fine.
Garlic's at least usable.
You
but
brought sprinkles,
No,
Jake?
no. This is a lot of garlic. We're covering the pizza. It's only going to be garlic.
See,
Okay.
Jake ruined the pizza party.
Jake
I have
ruined
This
the
happens
party.
every time.
But
at least it's on direction, right?
But my point would be, yes, railroading can exist, but I think that there's an amount of like, okay, let's not consider we're gonna play Ghosts of Saltmarsh. I don't think that's railroading, and that's kind of what, to a degree, this is.
We're
you
going to
know?
play Ghost of Saltmarsh. I would like to leave Saltmarsh.
Yeah, I would like to not purchase a boat. Is basically what you're saying. If you're like, so I want to give that caveat whenever I talk about kind of the social aspect of playing D&D in a situation like this. You're always getting together. That's what session zeros are for. Figuring out what the campaign is, what you guys want to do, what the general themes are going to be. You know, I pitch Curse of Strahd and I say it's going to be gothic horror. That's what it is. And if people aren't interested in that, then maybe it's either not the right campaign to play with this group or things need to be adjusted. But if you don't want to play a city campaign, not a city campaign then for you.
Right. Well,
Sorry, I know I went off on my tangent,
no,
but
please do. The soapbox, you're allowed to step up to it. That's absolutely allowed.
it's just one of those things that I feel passionately about because I know that railroading is such a knee-jerk, like, okay, you feel like you're getting railroaded, now you feel
There
like you
is-
have no agency.
There is railroading that I don't enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give an example. So you all did something this last session.
Yeah,
You had and
I know what this is.
you had decided, let's go right now. And I guess I'm almost talking the inversion of railroading. I had an encounter and a concept planned near the docks for when the party inevitably decided to investigate the death of an architect of Elts near the docks. This was something I had planned, but not something I expected the party to encounter last session. And so when my party decided, seeing some things that were going on in one section, no, let's go tonight. Let us pre-rest. Let's go to the docks right now. Elle's out of spell slots. Silas,
Oh, I was ready.
you're
I was
ready
busy
for
4
everything.
HP,
I had more spell slots than I would have had because I took a short rest. I recast Mage Armor, took a short rest, and used Arcane Recovery.
Yeah.
So I'm the only one doing, like, Silas and I are great.
We were ready.
But so what's exciting is in this instance, I think all DMs have I'm guessing this is where they'll go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in general, I think most DMs are pretty good about. I have a path that I'm guessing the players are going to. I'm gonna draw in the margins, and it gets less and less clear as you go further.
Yeah.
This is you took one turn near the end, but roughly you went into town. You stayed at one of the taverns. You went to the Daring Duelist.
Yeah.
I didn't expect the fight, but we had a skill challenge there.
Yeah.
We'll come back to the duels a little bit later. But kind of did the opposite.
Yeah.
I had an intended path. You guys veered off, and it worked. I think.
And this is a situation where railroading could have happened in a way that was like more hidden. So like, okay, while you guys are taking your short rest, you're, ninjas jump in through the windows. Or like your beds are all animated furniture and they're gonna attack you now. So there's like
Beds murder you.
please continue to write that down because I want to experience it. I would love to be attacked during a rest by my own bedroll. That'd be great.
Strangled by sheets.
Wait, animate objects is a spell.
It is, yes.
Spell?
No, there are ways to do it.
Or like
I've attacked you with doorways a few times.
Doorways. I love animated weapons, animated brooms, animated armor. Give me all of the weird. Again, you know what I like. Yeah, that kind of makes sense for me. But yeah, that could have been a situation where if you were like, okay, I have to put a stop on this for one reason or another, that could be a place where you could introduce something like that as players. And that's the
I'm not a
weird
big
thing
fan of
too. The weird thing about watching it though versus playing it. I would be curious if that happened. I don't know if anybody at the table would have picked up on it.
I suppose that's true. I do keep.
I think people watching could have, but I don't think anybody at the table would have caught it because it would have been like, oh, all you could do is have somebody roll a d20, and there you go. You've hidden your railroading.
I'll be honest.
Icky,
I
I know.
don't really like that from behind the screen.
Right.
I
Definitely not a thing you should do, but it's an interesting thought of, yeah, that is an example of, okay, I don't want them to go there tonight, so I'm going to put that break in place by saying, here's a combat encounter, boom, let's go.
I'll admit, I had, for the last session, 4 battle maps prepared. Did not go to those places. That's good, because every time we have one of these, if we have an encounter that is missed for one reason or another, I get to look at that and say, all right, well, I can have, maybe it's an encounter that can show up later down the line, and from there I can refine it, maybe make it more challenging or a little bit easier, do some testing. Maybe it changes dynamically based on how you affect the world.
Am I a source of unethical DM tips?
Yes.
No, maybe.
Yes.
No, okay. Again, this is all with the caveat of saying that I wouldn't do this and I don't think it's a good idea to do to your players. There you go. But I thought it was an interesting thought experiment.
Should we talk about the murder? Connor, now I don't know if Connor said it on camera or if it was right after we turned off cameras, but he posed a question right near the end. Are we hunting a serial killer?
That's kind of what we're doing, which makes me happy because my other true love is true crime. So
I'll admit, and I think it's going to get a lot more, I think it's going to improve as we go along. This is a big tonal shift in, not this campaign, because we've been dealing with the murders as we've progressed. Or the murder, the one, now we're going to a second. But this is a little tonally different than what we had last campaign, where the early adventures were, oh man, those misogynist gangsters at that one bar, or the goblins who were harassing the camp. This is some sort of grisly murderer.
Right. And I guess actually, wrap back around a little bit, still involving the murder though. I think that the problem was we were all convinced that we were going to miss out on inspecting the crime scene. And so like our fears were, if we don't get there.
Yeah, the trail is cold is something that I've heard 3 or 4 times throughout this campaign.
Right, we don't want the trail to go cold. We don't want the trail to go cold.
I think it's more from Clella and from some of your other players. Because you all have been keeping pace for a while.
Yeah, we were under the impression that because of the time that we spent in Walnut Hill that the trail had gone cold on the Oswald murder. So we've been trying to hurry up.
Mm-hmm. And then we skipped a farmhouse, apparently.
Do you want to know how that worked?
Yes. Yes?
I know who murdered Oswald.
Oh, really?
I also know who murdered this person whose name you don't yet know, because you have not spoken to any people about it before investigating.
His name is Bob. Don't listen to him.
It's Bob.
Oh, Bobette.
Her name, which you don't know, and I will not be revealing here on Footnotes today, sorry, is something that's unknown to you. But what happened with this is that, and this is good, we're going to talk about something that isn't railroading, but I planned, if the party does not interact with the killer or killers, what is the killer doing for the next few weeks? I had a number of days before this person was killed.
I've prepped 2 different campaigns. And in both of them, I had, one of them I even had the weather planned. Both of them I had the weather planned. There were reasons for it in those campaigns. I would love to return to both of them someday. But there was reasoning behind, like, okay, there's events that happen either within a certain time period. You either roll for them and just like decide how long it's going to be in between these different events, or like certain things only happen on certain kinds of days with weather. Here's the chance it's going to be bad weather, and plot it out ahead of time. I think that for me takes off some of the pressure of like, okay, you guys rested, now what's happening the next day. And it's kind of fun to just
There's also the Schrodinger's Orcs paradigm, which is in this case, Schrodinger's murder, where there are DMs who will play that whenever the party arrives at the city, last night was when the murderer struck it. I'm not a big fan of that. Yeah. If you all hadn't taken your time in Walnut Hill, it would have, so that was about 2 days, 2 or 3 days. It would have happened a few nights into your time here in Eltz. Perhaps you could have stopped it. Now at this point, we'll never know.
I think the thing is also that you are a homebrew DM and I'm a pre-written content DM.
That's fair.
So in some of the things I have looked at, read, run, or started to run, prepped, whatever, there's been you will hit a fail state in a certain amount of time, and that is on a range. And so knowing what the duration of time is and when the different markers of milestones are in that kind of situation, instead of going every day like, okay, does it advance or not, gives you a framework as a DM to work with. And I'd say also, with you planning out the murders, or what the murderer is doing anyway.
I know what the murderer is doing next if you don't do anything.
Right.
Good luck.
So doing that ahead of time too also gives it that more organic feel for us as players going in and saying, okay, so like, I'm gonna go investigate this today, and okay, maybe the murderer wasn't there, or is going to be there, and you know, instead of just being like on the fly, like, oh, what's the chance the murderer would be here? You already kind of have that done, and that takes some of the pressure off, I think, probably. You know?
Just a point.
I agree. I mean, so we are really in the we laying out things beforehand, kind of knowing what's going on.
That's pretty obvious.
Planning is good.
Planning is pretty good.
But with this serial killer, you all just showed up here kind of a little unprepared. We got some maybe failed wisdom saves. We'll see what's going on with those this Friday. But
Poor Hoot.
Poor Hoot. What a cool spell.
I am so excited for Flock of Familiars to get cast more.
And I'm kind of curious. Do you have any thoughts on this unfolding quest that we have going on? There are 2 people dead now. You don't know exactly what's going on. Do you have any thoughts? Have you solved my mystery? Have you Sherlocked me?
I have not figured out who it is.
Or why? Okay.
That songbird thing. It's got to be something relevant. No idea. But I leave that to the smart players.
Well, here's the problem, right? We don't know who they killed before, and we don't know who we're currently looking at now. We don't know if there's any connection between these 2 people whatsoever. So we got to figure out, okay, Oswald and the new person. Was anybody before Oswald?
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I mean, it's also kind of like we need to look at the scene too. Eltz is very artistic, and this killer is coming out of Eltz into Eltz doing artistic murders. So like
the first person you know of was
with prismatic ink
was at the Low Prism within Coppersbeck, which was a shop that sold inks and paints.
And the other thing is, other people, because the shopkeep was also dead there, right?
Well, the shopkeep was the person who was stabbed a lot of times.
Right, and Oswald was more obviously
Impaled.
grisly, gruesome, and known to us versus the shopkeep that we had talked to one time. Oswald was like, "Oh, we're gonna travel with you, buddy." So
I believe I said something along the lines of the shopkeeper had hundreds of individual bottles poured on his corpse. It got pretty dark.
we're pretty grisly.
Yeah, it was a
I think if we
Poetic.
could just bake this in public right now on the stream, I have a regret about our time in Coppersbeck not finding out as much as we could about the shopkeep, because I'm beginning to wonder if it was less about Oswald and more about the shopkeep at the Low Prism, which is the store directly related to Eltz, and selling the inks that come from the capital.
kind of on that vein, where the next murder we're looking at right now is, in a way, an artist. Was the shopkeep themselves an artist? I would think so, being like
Yes,
a painter.
he was a painter. He was a painter.
With that said, like, are we looking at someone specifically
Right.
targeting people that have done art or something like that? What's the motive? It's like,
Right.
where do we get at?
Was Oswald, and this is all the things that we have to think about as players and figure out the mystery, which we'll get there one day, or we won't actually figure it out, and we'll eventually just get to check. Like, we won't figure out why it's happening, but we'll find the murderer themselves, and we'll figure it out from their mouth, hopefully. But yeah, I think that I love puzzles. I love D&D puzzles. So you've just given me like a very long
puzzles.
puzzle.
They're very difficult, and I think when not this week on Footnotes, but once we have a dungeon with some puzzles in it in the session, I'd love to chat a little bit about ways to make puzzles something enjoyable for players. Because
I've been given some puzzle advice in the past.
well, look up things for third graders.
Right, I read
good solid
puzzles,
piece of advice.
Puzzles for toddlers was what I was told.
That's
Physical puzzles. It's got to be something physical. Because again, you're trying to play Dungeons and Dragons in a social setting with a bunch of people while you're also playing a separate game. Puzzles don't have to be very difficult, but that's my short story.
right. Now, you mentioned something briefly, and I know you've been wanting to talk about it constantly since you leveled up. Tell me about Flock of Familiars is Meaty's new, I don't know about trump card, but exciting spell.
New exciting spell. Flock of Familiars.
From Tasha's.
It was from
No,
Tasha?
Fizzbands.
It's Fizzbands.
No, it's not. It's not. It's one of the little module books.
Oh, so,
It's not even
it's a weird
Fizzbands.
one?
Yeah. It's like lost something.
oh, it's
Qualish.
so it's not new. It's from the Qualish book.
Oh, well then I've just never seen it before.
Yes,
but I'm
okay.
very excited about it. Okay.
Regardless of the
sitting up in
source.
my seat. Right. So you summon is a second level spell with a casting time of a minute and a duration of an hour and its concentration.
Ah, there we are.
Yeah.
Multiple familiars. Scaling on the spell level used.
3 familiars at level 3. +1 for spell level of, spell level used. Spell slot used to cast. If you already have a familiar, it counts against that number. So I have 1 familiar already, so I get 2 familiars out of the spell. They last for an hour. Now here's the interesting part. With regular fine familiar, it costs you 50 gold to cast. It takes, it's a ritual spell where you can use a spell slot for it. And they last until they die, and then it costs you another 50 gold to cast. This one is just no cost, but you do have to use that higher spell slot. You can communicate with them telepathically out to a mile. And you can use them to see out to a mile. So they are an improved familiar that only lasts for an hour, but still is a familiar. So in combat, giving them things like, hey, go help Silas, go help Elle.
Can they all deliver touch spells as per the regular familiar?
All of them can deliver touch spells, however, you can still only
One
use
spell.
it one time. So say you had an action, you couldn't do a touch cantrip and a bonus action touch leveled spell in the same turn. It says you can only use the touch feature once.
So I will say one thing that is the only downside I've seen so far looking to spell is that due to it being concentration, you can't use my favorite familiar application, which is the spell Dragon's Breath.
Okay, that's fair.
With a range of touch, you are able to imbue one of your familiars with the ability to breathe dragon fire.
Which I would love to put on Squawk in general, but
Do you get to choose the damage type with it?
You do. Now, I believe it is limited to essentially the core elementals as per the 10 types of true dragons set in the default rules, the chromatics and the metallics.
so I don't get to have necrotic damage come out of Squawk's mouth.
No necrotic at the moment, unfortunately,
But
but
find a chromat.
I think I'm pretty excited. We may need to get you set up with a trio of custom miniatures, or little painted familiars for them.
Well, here's the thing: is now my familiars are named Squawk, Hoot, and Chirp, and
Was it Chirp who perished?
no,
Hoot.
Hoot died.
Hoot died.
Chirp was the one who looked first.
Pour one out.
But pour one out for Chirp. Hoot went up next and looked.
Not in here.
Not in here, not on the table. But Jake. But I'm so excited to say that I cast Flock of Familiars and get a cat and an octopus, and their names are Hoot and Chirp. Because those are their names, my friend.
Absolutely.
And whenever I cast it at 3rd level, I'm just gonna need to find another bird onomatopoeia. It's gonna be fine.
Quack.
That was kind of, for me, one of the highlights was, I love to see a clever a use of a spell that is clever in some way. I like utility spells. Now, you've had me as a player. I love rolling lots of dice and doing big numbers. The big number make me my endorphins go up. I'm very excited and happy, but I really like seeing cool spells used in interesting ways. You were avoiding guards using the Flock of Familiars. That was kind of one of my highlights. Was there anything in this last session that was, or in the last, it's been a while for Jake, or anytime recently that's been exciting for you?
I want to talk about that, but I also want to go back across what I'd call the prologue.
Ooh.
And talk about kind of our highlights, because now we've hit Elts, now we've kind of entered into this new phase, We're here,
Right, you can
we're
jump
ready
on.
to go.
I think people will be able to jump on now and
Yeah.
be fine.
I mean, you come into the next session, short story, hey, we're tracking down a murderer and we found another murder. Roll for initiative, maybe. But but it is I want to talk also, yes, last couple sessions, but also in general the campaign so far.
Did you have something you wanted to say?
I wanted to ask, you asked Jake.
Okay.
And
Oh,
I was
we
asking
were-
Jake
I
as
was
well.
asking
you two.
Oh.
Okay, I don't know. I thought I was waiting on you to go.
Oh, never
I mean,
mind
if we're
then.
talking about this kind of a thing, one of my favorite things is when you take D&D's regular structure and make something weird out of it. And this is something you've done a lot of.
Uh-oh.
I don't want to say mini games, but almost feels like mini games. Like back from like the prologue, we had a carnival with our skill checks. Which
Those were explicitly mini games.
skill
Yeah.
checks.
Actually.
It was actually, there were 6 of them, one for each ability score.
Nice.
That was, and that's,
charisma.
truthfully, fellow DMs out there, use your game, use the different ability scores as a very lame, a very easy to make. You can use the different ability scores to make an easy set of challenges. And honestly, the simple challenges work. My party spent an entire session with them. There was one of them that ended up being shut down because there wasn't time in session. It was the Evo Ball station for playing the Eltsian sport.
Did we not get to that?
No, there's
Is that
actually
gonna be dexterity?
there's a couple of Evo Ball stadiums in Elts. I don't know if you're ever going to join to do some sports
Are
ball.
they int only?
But I'm ready to do some announcing voices.
Are they int based?
I thought they were Dex.
Yes, the answer is yes to that.
Oh, then I'm
Right?
gonna be good at a sport.
Oh, there are multiple roles. We're going to get real Quidditchy up in here.
Awesome.
Evo Ball, which I don't believe you ever. No, you never got to actually play it, though you've
No.
seen some students practicing before back at the Tower of Aeon's School of the Arcane. What?
I didn't go to the tower school.
But you have seen it before. It is a sort of magical. It's a very magical game that is played with students wearing a specialized form of glove and spheres of raw evoked elemental and force energy.
Doesn't that sound dangerous?
It is very dangerous.
It's the whole.
Fall damage is actually more often than not the cause of people being ejected from the game or removed from the game.
Or ejected from life.
No. Death is not approved in the sanctioned Evo Ball games.
I cannot wait to find. Okay.
Underground Evo
I
I was about to
Ball.
say the word
I've been-
sanctioned means there's unsanctioned.
Right. I've been looking for underground poker, and now I'm looking for underground Evo Ball. Also, just give me all of the games.
So Jake, you're a big fan of minigames?
No, literally, what you just explained to me would be a highlight. Just this small moment of like your crazy kooky brain came up with like, I have these stats, I have these ideas. I'm gonna put D&D together with these and make something new. Like I feel like sometimes D&D could be a bit linear. Like I fight this, I talk to this, I fight this, I talk to this. You as a DM have done something like highlight to me. You go outside the box. The mini games, small things like that, like the skill challenge on your feet between me and Elle. Yeah, it was a duel, but like it was something right then and there, something small that's a highlight. Where it's a skill check. I used random skills. We role played it, but it was like really interactive.
Well, I guess we're gonna talk about duel. Let's talk about dueling.
Yes.
What about me?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, you're right. We'll talk dueling
highlight
later, please,
is-
Victoria. No.
Important.
No. Yeah.
No.
Please speak over us. This
My-
is your place.
Right. I feel like I've talked a lot tonight, so
No,
I've been trying to
please.
like.
We
get
let
it out.
the air should be filled with pink sweater lady.
Yes. Great.
You're Jake. Join me.
It's quite the color on camera, honestly.
I guess it is a little less pink. We're a little washed out
We're
today.
a little. Oh, they got
We
the
did.
Oh,
overhead.
the overhead light is on. 1 second. Let me fix that.
That's why I was wondering.
It's still kind of washed out, but it's a little better.
A little better. It's fine.
So I would. No, just kidding. I have missed. Okay, I admit I like high level play. It's fun to have 9th level
Love it.
spells. It's great. I love it. I love getting stronger. It always is that monkey brain says yes, give me more spell slot. I love it. I love playing casters. I love getting more spells. It's just like yes, give me dopamine. But I want so much all the time to get to start out again as a new player, start as a new character, get that fresh experience, and it has been
I love his Mimi.
so much fun to have a new character that I've gotten to explore, to meet everybody else's characters. That first session, I sat there nervous, just so nervous as I listened to everybody introduce themselves, and I just watched Jake and Amanda do such a good job of just like, here's who our characters are, like, this is what we're doing, this is why we're here, and I just, that rush of like getting to know everybody is why I love one-shots, I love mini-series, I love the beginning of campaigns.
I'd love to run a bunch of them for you. How's that
And
sound?
it is every single time that moment of going around the table, and yes, we say our names and introduce our characters that way, but like okay, you're standing outside of the stalls waiting for the stable boy to bring you your horse. describe what you look like. Oh, beautiful moment. I love it. And so getting to start at the start of a campaign also with Jake and Amanda, fantastic. The great players.
You guys rock.
Oh yeah. I know.
I started
Okay,
with
it's all Amanda.
we had started another campaign with them too. They came into one, and then we had started.
We started
from the
as
beginning.
best friends then too. Like it's a common thing.
I will tell you, I have
Yeah.
a secret plan, and I'm going to spoil it right now. I'm going to have you all you play characters that hate each other at some point. It's going to be fun. Step outside the comfort zone.
But I haven't gotten to start a campaign with everybody at the table before.
No, this is the first time we've had this exact group start.
Right, because I didn't start with anybody currently playing for our first campaign. Then people had started.
That's true.
Yeah, so people started coming in and joining.
We did have Alex, who's our man behind the camera.
Man behind the camera, but he's not playing at the table currently with us. So, Connor comes in, Chloe comes in, Jake and Amanda come in. Great. We go and we play a little other smaller campaign together. Connor, Jake, and Amanda start.
Oh, I missed that one.
It was a good arc.
I'm gonna say
good.
that's still my favorite character I've ever made.
Oh, he's so cute. I loved him. But getting to start out with all of these people that I've just come to love playing with, it's so good. It's so good. That's really what my highlight's just the table. I love the players.
Well, that's sweet, and all of us are both. We're all. You know what? I'm gonna crib an idea from Clella and pretend I don't have emotions
Great.
about that. I do though. That was really nice.
She said the players, not the DM.
Oh, damn.
I'm kidding.
Hashtag DMs are players too.
You
You should have fun.
You are playing every MC.
You are playing every single other person, and you've been my DM for the start of every one of my campaigns that I've played with you with DM.
I have some.
Because I've also been
ideas.
DM'd by other people, but for every
Things I want to run with people at this table now, and maybe some others back home, including a couple people who are in our audience that I'm hoping to run some games for very soon.
he's been the DM for the start of every campaign that he's ever DM'd for me.
That's
I played in Clella's campaign too, so I can't say all of my.
exactly.
I know I'm being silly.
Let's talk about dueling. So this last session,
Great.
you went to the Daring Duelist, which I'll admit I was a foolish DM and failed to print a certain document out because I didn't expect after all of your travels that you would immediately go to, well, not just for fighting without any chance of profit. That was what surprised me.
There was some money thrown around.
Right, well, the lady gave you a schedule, you can fight in a few days, and you went, we'll fight now.
You said a couple words earlier today.
Oh, no.
Where you said that you
I'll deny
like to roll dice and see big numbers.
Oh, no.
That is exactly what happened. It was like, oh, we could fight each other. We could roll dice and see numbers. It
That's
feels
fair.
good to do.
Dueling one-on-one in 5th edition, and honestly, I would actually say this extends to quite a few TTRPGs, several systems that I've used. I would say, in general, it doesn't necessarily work perfectly.
Yeah.
And so, something that happened pretty late in our last campaign, as it had seemed, and Jake kind of affirmed this for me just now, that the players very much enjoyed having skill challenges, ways to accomplish various tasks using your various skill checks to improve your chances or gain a number of successes and failures. And so what ended up developing was a system for actually dueling between two parties. Now, during the last campaign, that was used mainly for there'd be a big fat battle going on, and the whole party was facing off against these forces, and one of them would go and duel the enemy commander, and sort of have this sort of locked-in battle within a greater battle. So everyone was involved. We don't make people be just bored while we have these battles, but we did develop an actual dueling system. And now I didn't have the actual I didn't have my text written out, my little guide for refereeing these duels during my last session, but I thought we'd explain it here, as we're going to be seeing it very soon in the actual campaign. Do you want to go over it real quick?
Yeah.
It's pretty
As long as you save me 5 minutes at the end of this.
Oh, absolutely. You can, like I said, you can have as much air as you want in
Give me
here.
5 at the end.
Dueling is relatively simple. How we play our duels in our games is that we have 5 sort of stances. And actually this system applies to multiple different things, including games of chance. We actually talked about using it for Dragon Chess as well, was one of the systems we used to make this. But essentially, there are these different stances that players can take. There's a small list. Each of these stances is effective versus 2 of the others, and ineffective essentially not effective versus 2 more. Essentially what this means, simplicity, you've heard of rock, paper, scissors. Well, this is sort of a 5-pronged version of rock, paper, scissors. For those of you with taste in... I'm just going to say, no longer airing shows that I have no comment opinions about. They're rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. It's a 5-pointed star of this beats this, beats this, beats this. And essentially, each of these stances has a benefit. So if my stance beats your stance, I'll gain a benefit based on what my stance was. One of them, for example, gives me advantage on all my attack rolls. Another gives my opponent disadvantage on saving throws during this turn. And so each turn, we secretly select one of these stances and reveal them at the same time. And so by doing this, the player sort of gets to commit and also guess a little bit about the player. When we saw this in our climactic duel at the end of our last campaign, where Connor dueled against Magnus the Great Shadow Dragon in his false elven form he had hidden himself in.
So good.
I forgot that. But
Connor actually managed to correctly beat the stance by picking the correct counter stance multiple times, knowing the attitude, as each of these stances kind of corresponds to a level of aggression or being very clever and using your guile. These stances will actually have you making skill checks, like deception for trying to do some sort of feint. They have a specific set of rules that we'll talk about a little bit more when the players use them in game. But the important part is you're playing rock, paper, scissors and getting a certain advantage on what you picked. In our setting, different areas of the realm use different names for these stances. And in Gren, where our campaign takes place, they are named after the 5 noble metallic dragons: gold, silver, bronze, copper, brass. That was all. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. Honestly, it was because we've talked about it a few times now, and I wanted to make sure that we touched it. At some point, we should talk about how we get what our system of DM inspiration is.
Oh, yeah.
There's a little red box. Get it from behind the screen.
Or I should have a dice bag here.
Careful. If I get one of yours, you'll be in trouble.
Yeah, don't take it out.
All right, we're gonna be full cards on the table, or in
Yep.
this case, chips. These are bicycle poker chips. They're very cheap. I got them as a little gift from my mother. Thank you so much. And what was excellent about them is they are a very useful, clear object that's easy for players to keep track of and have on hand.
Put them in your dice bag.
You can put them in your dice bag or your dice box, keep them in your dice tray. But the idea actually comes from a podcast, actually a network of podcasts that I'm a massive fan of. The Glass Cannon podcast, which runs originally just Pathfinder 1st edition, but branched off into Starfinder. They actually recently started playing Traveler, an excellent 2d6 dice game for those of you who may be interested in something a little less mechanically focused. We've got a great character creation system. But they use a system called bottle caps, which were these bottle caps that Troy LaValle, their dungeon master, or game master rather, would hand out to their players begrudgingly to grant them benefits. At first they used it as advantage, though later they transitioned for different meanings. But the point was a sort of redeemable object for players to have for exceptional role play, for very clever thinking. Sometimes for making a particularly good fart joke. Whatever the reason that the players obtain one of these things, they're very, very excited to get them because they... Oh, well, give it back. No. Oh no, I can't steal it from Victoria.
Ha!
Well, whatever the reason that the players obtain these, they are usable for a sort of currency. Oh, I can have it back?
I didn't feel
Suckers.
earned.
I did all that work.
But
for
what's
nothing.
great about them is they persist between games. We have a joke that if I find them, you got to be careful because I might steal them.
Might.
But they give players a way to... It's the DM inspiration system. It already exists as a rule in 5th edition, but it's something that consistently amongst nearly every dungeon master I've talked to falls by the wayside. Players forget them all the time.
Which, again, this is something I've talked about a little bit online. I was a bard. I tried to fix the problem. Dice don't work. They're better. but they don't work entirely.
Your solution was okay, and just to refresh you, how did Finland remind people you have bardic inspiration?
So I went out and I got the most obnoxiously beautiful, colorful, glittery dice.
Glitter dice.
So a bright, hot pink one, a gold one, just like bright colored glitter dice. Clear dice was just chock full of glitter. And if I gave somebody bardic inspiration, I would hand them a glitter die that was kind of like an obvious color against the patterns of the rest of their dice. So I had like 5 D6s that were extra D8s. Yeah, I had a bunch of them that were very obviously not their dice to hand out. And whenever you hand out dice to people, it can kind of get lost in the mire of all the other dice they have sitting on. It does work. Whenever we switch to online, it's a lot harder to do because you're trying to remind people, hey, you've got inspiration, and it gets very annoying very fast. And then the solution on paper is you can check a box that says you've got inspiration, but now you're checking and erasing and checking and erasing, because there were people that I would give inspiration to every time they ran out of it.
And now we haven't. Now it's possible. I'm not certain we'll end up doing this quite yet. We've had an idea for something to replace bicycles as it's a tangible chip that you hand in. This isn't a normal D&D game piece. Most of them are relatively colorful. They're big right in front of you. Mm-hmm. As they turn them in, they'll remember them. We've talked about actually taking some capuchons and putting the face of the players underneath. And so you'll draw a capuchon out of the bag. You'll have a little Silas or a little Ismini.
Yeah.
Maybe my face. Who knows? But having that sort of tangible token is great. Maybe if we get a bard in the future, we'll create a similar chit to hand out to players.
Dice are the other good thing about the dice is that you don't have to keep asking what the inspiration is. You've got the dice sitting in front of you. It's why I really like the die version. And if you want to do DM inspiration with a D20, you could theoretically do that too, I think. But again, we have out like 80 D20s, not really, but we have quite a number of D20s out because we want to remember that we need, like, you know, I am superstitious about my dice. It's not rolling well, I'm going to go grab a new one, or just to roll advantage. So the D20 one for DM inspiration, I can see it working as well, but I think it's just been easier for us to have something that's so obviously different, a covetable piece of something to have at the table. Because, you know, it's like, I got this to hand in.
Victoria?
Yeah?
And here's a fun thing. And because I can't do it for just one person that's here, that was very clever. And Jake, you've been such a good boy.
I always am.
Giving these, and so what's great also about giving your players, and this is again where I'm going to pretend to be a mean DM, giving your players incentives both improve their time at the table. It's genuinely fun to last minute get a reroll because this person will die.
You saw us do that like this session.
But also giving them to some of your players on one of these footnotes, knowing you have dear friends in the audience
watching it happen,
boiling, fuming, Connor rubbing together furiously as he plots right now.
I just got my first one.
And it wasn't during a game.
It wasn't during a session, but I still have an intense amount of joy that I will eventually get to use it for something. Now, I have a question, because we have had quite a break from the last time we used this method to now.
Yes.
Are we using it only to impart advantage on ourselves?
Oh, are you asking if you can use the other form of bicycle where you ruin my day?
Can we impart disadvantage on the DM and do bicycle stack?
No, to that second one. Bicycles.
Meaning, if I give you disadvantage, could somebody give you advantage and give it a neutral roll?
Oh.
Do they
Wait a second.
stack?
Can I pit my players against each other? That is fun. That is fun. You know what we'll do? I'm going to go ahead and let you know. We've talked in the past about can you impart disadvantage on me. This is a very powerful effect. I would advise DMs if you are a new dungeon master, that using bicycles in that way, using a DM inspiration that allows you to impart disadvantage is stronger than a player rolling advantage.
Yes.
So if you're new, you're not comfortable with balancing, I would absolutely tell you, if you want to copy the system, do not let your players use them on you. That being said, come at me.
Flip side. Can we use them on other players to get disadvantage?
You may.
You can.
Absolutely.
There have been times where we have wanted to. Somebody has gone rogue and we have wanted to stop them from doing something bad.
I'm absolutely fine with this because...
I actually did that once. I did to do the thing that I did that one time where we had like a huge ethics discussion of like player versus player, like mind control.
We've all talked about...
end up using it one.
We've all talked as a group. And if we ever change, if there's a new player who comes in, immediately all forms of PvP do not exist until we've all talked about we trust each other, we have a great time playing together, and all of my players are excellent at failing forward. The only reason I'm okay with this is because I know my players are good sports. And again, any sort of player versus player, I do not advise for new dungeon masters. I'm not pretending to be a professional. I'm not. Well, I guess we are. We are playing here on Twitch with our wonderful folks here, but. I've been DMing for a few years with the same group, and due to the experience with these wonderful friends that I've made on the journeys, I think it's okay for us to do it.
And we know each other pretty well.
You're not going to do it to give Clella disadvantage on a death saving throw.
Right.
And I would say...
It was very explicitly a conversation that during session I walked off and I said, hey, are you comfortable? This is what I want to do. I think it's something that my character would want to do because I have the opportunity to. Are you okay with this? Can I mind control you to make you give up a wish spell? It was a very, very intense moment.
We'll go through that whole story.
It was rough. It was really rough, and that can be a totally different day. But it was definitely one of those where whenever Jake and Amanda came in and started playing at the table, we laid off of the PvP with them.
And we've never had real PvP.
Right. We haven't tried to kill each other in session. It's just been, can I kind of stop your goals if your goals aren't aligning with what I think your goals should be, or
Yeah.
Pretty soon, we're going to get to see that dueling system in place. Perhaps our players will actually decide to do the duel using the more formalized dueling rules here in the near future, as well as maybe Evo Ball. So Evo Ball is a team sport. If we ever get to see you guys working together or against one another, I'd love to see it.
I'll be coach.
You'll be coach. I approve. We have a comment here from one of our most favorite fans, ECAT I know it's not a Cadex and you're not a drug. My apologies, but I do have to say, you are knowing both Lorak and Trebor, two very interesting characters from a fun little one-shot way back when. I absolutely could see Lorak doing that to Trebor.
Oh
And
yeah,
honestly,
for sure, ruthless.
Totally, Trebor, I gotta tell you, you deserved it. You really did. With that, unfortunately, we're out of time.
Oh.
We can't stay here. Jake has to leave us. He has a family, and how many pets do you have?
Four
kids.
So many babies.
Well, babies. They're little. I would demand some pet pictures on our Discord, which you should absolutely come join if you haven't already. We'd love to chat. We talk about our goings on here as D&D players. Do a little planning, maybe share some behind the scenes pictures.
There's a lot of elephant memes. Is what I was going to say.
It's actually mostly elephant memes.
It is
during
mostly.
The week.
It is mostly Silas memes.
Silas has quite a dedicated and growing fan base. If you'd like to join that, or if you just like some good old-fashioned Dungeons and Dragons, go ahead and follow us here on Twitch. If you're on YouTube, give us a subscription. And if you like what we're doing, we'd love to have you come support us here on Twitch. There's our regular and Prime subs. All of you really help us make this channel work.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Prime subs don't renew on their own.
Yes.
We found that out.
We've learned this recently, and we're going to start reminding you as much as we can. Those of you who subscribe using your free Prime subscription, we appreciate you. It does not renew automatically.
Yeah, we remind you because you don't get to use emotes anymore if you don't have that. If that subscription goes away.
And as you will see in our chat quite often, our darling emotes made by a wonderful artist on Twitter are fantastic, and the little Silas is just to die for. My favorite emote.
Thorn.
I'm allowed to. Can I say it? My favorite emote is the Lilier emote, which I'm very excited for us to unlock.
Lily is unlocked.
Is it unlocked?
Lily is at tier 2.
Oh, it's our tier 2.
Sure.
I'm very excited to see little L shrugs, because L's above it all. But that's going to be our footnotes for today. Join us this Friday at 7 Central as our players continue their journey into Eltz, hunting down this strange painting serial killer. Thank you all so much, and have a great week.
Bye, y'all.
Oh my gosh, there's little Silas's in the chat.